9.3, the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 8th of November 2023 to be confirmed as true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ryan, seconded. Councillor Cox. Any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? 6-0. Thank you. Carried 6-0. Sorry? 6-0. Yep, that's item 5.4, the minutes of the special council meeting held on 29th of November 2023 at 9:30 a.m. as confirmed as true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Richards, seconded Councillor Cox. Any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. And finally, 5.5, the minutes of the special council meeting held on 29th of November 2023 at 4:30 p.m. as confirmed as true and correct record. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cox. Seconded Councillor Ryan. Any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. A small finger there, thank you. Thank you. Okay, question time from the public. Note we have some public here. We've got no responses from the questions taken on notice. In question time, not received any bookings at this point. Do we have any members of the public who would like to ask a question? Mr. Sims, would you like to come forward? Please state your name and your address for the records. You have the limit of 3 questions.
Keith Sims, 16 Meadowview, Busselton. Evening, Mayor, councillors, CEO and everyone else in the chamber. So I have 3 questions. First one, Vass River restoration. The city disbanded the Lower Vass River Management Advisory Group earlier this year. Given the city's values and, this is a question, given the city's values and stewardship for environmental care, supporters of the Vass River, including previous members of the Management Advisory Group, wonder when the community meeting originally scheduled by Mr. Needham for October will now be held.
CEO?
I might ask Mr. Twyman to see if he's got the answer to that question.
So as part of the dissolving of the group, the actual there was a new stakeholder engagement model going to be used moving forward to engage a broader section of the community, and that the first part of that was the first biennial update event, which was held in April 2023. And the next one, November 2023, and the next one is in April 2024. So that is the next planned event to engage with the community.
So we're saying there was a community meeting in November?
No, there was, yes, a community biennial update event, which showcased stalls and was held on the 2nd of November.
My question is that we're advised we're going to have a community meeting for input from the community in October of this year, and unfortunately it hasn't happened. So my question is, when is that community meeting going to be held, or is there something else intended in its place?
Yes, so the intention is for those biennial update events.
Yep.
The next one will be in April 2024.
Okay, thank you. How will that meeting agenda be advised prior, and will it include the Living Streams alluvium peer review outcomes, which did not agree with onshore ponds and said no to changing the banks of the river?
Yeah.
Can I have that question again, Mr. Sims? Sorry.
Yeah, it was a little confusing.
So how will the meeting agenda be advertised prior, and will it include the Living Streams alluvium peer review outcomes, which did not agree with onshore ponds and said no to changing the banks of the river or the shape?
I think, Mr Sims, the decision that council made, and I'm sorry, I forget the date, around the methods moving forward included things like, so I believe, so Thursday the 2nd of November was the open day, and that's that engagement with the community to engage with the broader community, and that would be reviewed at another stage as to when that would come back. So I think you had another date there, sorry, Mr Twyman, about in 2024?
Yeah, during April 2024.
In April,
will be the
okay.
next.
So I think the idea there is that then more information will be brought back to the community to be able to disseminate that with the community, and then the council would also then do a review of how that's moving forward, rather than because that decision from memory, and apologies because I'm not overly across it, is that the decision from memory was that while that committee was disbanded at the time, that then we'd go through these sorts of processes and then review that, and if they went back to, if council chose to go back to that process, they could, or other ways of getting that information out to the community.
But I'd still say there was intended to be a meeting of the community in October for input to what the community wanted and expected, or ideas, which didn't happen, and for whatever reason it doesn't matter at this point. So all I was saying is, so what is going to happen in its place? When are we going to start having that type of meeting, or do you have some other concept?
Yeah, my understanding, Mr Sims, is that that's what that meeting was for, or that community meeting was for. So it's not in the same format that it used to be. And that was the decision that council made last year.
Okay, we're going around in a circle. I understand about that management advisory group, and it was closed down, and that's not what I'm commenting on. It was how it was going to be dealt with the community having input. So I'm not aware of anything in November, and I accept that April there will be something.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I thought you wanted to...
I didn't hear a question there. So you weren't aware of the one in November, so it was Thursday the 2nd of November. It was advertised out to the public. It was at the Underlup Room between 3 and 6 p.m.
No, I wasn't aware.
I was attending. Cool.
Okay. Second question?
Third question.
Sorry?
Is this the third question?
No, that was question 2 was in 2 parts about the river. Well, I could have made it one sentence if you wanted.
One more question, Mr Sims, please.
Saltwater Entertainment and Convention Centre. The COB business case had an annual operating loss of $1.2 million per year, and now the long-term financial plan has that operating loss per year growing 50% to $1.8 million. So my question is, how is the city going to fund that $600,000 increase, which for the $1.8 million is $34,600 a week loss? And will that include rate increases, and how do you expect to fund it?
Through the chair.
Happy to provide an initial response. Sure. Ms Pearson might wish to jump in. So long-term financial plan, Mr Sims, isn't a budget, so it's obviously a projection based on assumptions and market factors, etc. as well. So they're obviously what we'll need to review that constantly as well. We're currently in the process of a review of the current long-term financial plan. How it would be funded would basically be determined on what that outcome is of the new long-term financial plan and testing those assumptions, and then determined at budget time. It's because we're not at that point yet. It's not an answer that can be given definitively.
Okay. So because you've set 1.8 million as an operating loss, it doesn't mean that you've figured out how you're going to pay for it at this point?
No, within that long-term financial plan, there was an indication of where we would land at the end of the year, but remembering that they're estimates at the time. So they'll need to be tested every time we re-look at our long-term financial plan, and whether we check that either annually, we need to retest that again as we move forward when we set our budgets.
Yeah,
So when we set it in the long-term financial plan, that is not set, that is our estimate.
I understand, because there's nothing happening, so how can you have an exact figure?
And if we change how we run the library, that would also change. So any of our assets that make a loss in running, they all would be put into a long-term plan.
Which includes rate increases.
if that's the case,
It,
but also
it includes a lot of things, Mr Sims, to balance the budget. It will include things like looking at operational costs, potential savings that we may be able to make as well, or additional income if we're able to make that through other sources other than rates. But certainly rates is the largest portion of our income at the City of Busselton. That's not to say it would all be drawn from that.
Okay. So the basic answer is we don't know at this point.
Are you answering the question?
No, I'm not asking a question, I'm making a statement.
Well, we've answered the question. Thank you.
So the third one is regarding the Minister for Local Government short-term holiday home announcements in last week's paper. The City said it needed clarification on its own stringent approval conditions, on how, its own stringent approval conditions, which I agree with, would function under the state scheme. So my question is, if in the City's efforts to clarify some of its own stringent conditions, with the state government seeing for short-term rental requirements, will it seek to apply bans on unattended dogs for both unrented holiday homes and short-term holiday homes? And how would you enforce it?
Hello, Mr Sims. Well, the regulations, conditions and amenity controls that are imposed by the state government are a decision for state government. It's early days yet. Once we get a handle and a full understanding about what they're proposing, then we'll obviously review the impacts of that and consider any changes that we need to make to our existing management framework. So we don't know yet because we haven't done a full review of what that new legislation might mean to the city.
That I understand, but in the City's own documents prior to that announcement, I'm talking of some time ago, it had that you intended not to allow people to have unattended dogs. Now, I'll just clarify, you call short-term holiday homes, and I wanted a distinction between, and that's why I said both of them.
That's unhosted. Is that correct? Holiday
No,
homes. being
holiday
unhosted
homes.
Or short stay.
I'm not trying to be tricky. Holiday homes is the way the City, describe short-term holiday homes. So if you look at, when you refer to it, you say holiday homes.
Short-term residential accommodation short-term residential accommodation we refer to as holiday homes, and then we have that local law.
Yep.
Yep.
But
Correct.
people who have a home and down here and live in Perth, as an example, would call that a holiday home because they come down here to have their holiday in it, but they don't rent it. And that's why I said the two, holiday home and unrented holiday, short-term holiday homes and unrented holiday home, because the same thing applies when a dog is left unattended.
Well, a holiday home
It
is
will
somebody's
bark.
house, so they're under the same rules as if you own a house. So if you have a dog and someone leaves it at home, like lots of people do, then there's no difference. We're talking about if you're renting out a property
Yeah, I
and you
understand.
leave a dog there.
I understand.
So I'm
But-
confused what you're trying to say, sorry.
Well, so we acknowledge that when a dog comes down to a short-term rental for a holiday and is left unattended, it will bark because it doesn't live there.
Well,
If
they
it
bark
comes
in
down
how's
from
they live.
Perth for an unrented holiday home and it's left unattended, it will bark because it doesn't
Well,
live there.
any dog that barks, you can make a complaint to the rangers.
Yeah, I think your question, Mr Sims, was that what are we going to do about the dogs in houses that are not listed as holiday homes, but people are using them on a temporary basis? We would have to treat them the same as we would as a normal holiday home, a bit like you being here tonight if your dog's at home barking or those sorts of things. So we'd have to deal with that through our ranger services and under the Dog Act.
Yeah. But I live here. People who bring to their holiday home don't.
Thank
Anyway,
you, Mr Simpson.
So I'll make a statement. I hope you are going to introduce that barking dog policy.
I think there is one, but yes, thank you.
It's already there. I didn't think you did, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a nice holiday. everyone.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
You have a question to the council? You could please state your name and your address.
Oh, it's on. Jill Walsh, Isaac Street in Busselton. And my question is, the streaming of these meetings goes on YouTube, and the recent reforms of local government said that the streaming of meetings now has to be kept. They can't just be deleted.
They're not deleted. We do keep them.
Oh, sorry, I didn't bring the legislation with me. I thought that you'd...
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
a bit
sorry.
ahead of ourselves by even doing this.
Yeah, I've forgotten what section it's under.
Sure, I'll refer. So what's the question?
So I just wondered, are they going to now be stored indefinitely on YouTube? And if not, where will they be stored?
Yeah, I'll hand over to Ms Pearson, but yeah, certainly we're catching up with a lot of the legislation changes that keep trickling out over the months that we've had recently.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. The reforms do require Band 1 and 2 councils to make available the live stream for a longer period of time than our current council policy does.
Right.
So we will need to review that council policy, and we will need to make them available on our YouTube platform for longer. So in terms of us storing those live stream recordings, we have to store them as part of our record
Where will they
keeping.
be stored? And
So
will
they'll be
public have,
available. They'll be
access to
available.
them?
They'll be available on the YouTube.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, thank you. And the second question that I'm, if I may, that I hope is a quick one, that I'm asking on behalf of, I think there's about a dozen people wanted me to ask this. Is it possible to have the general electors meeting put on YouTube, because those people are all elderly or have disabilities, and they wanted to know that they're not comfortable coming to meetings because of COVID, and is it possible to put the general electors meeting on YouTube?
Through the Mayor, a very good question. At this stage, it's possible, I believe. So we'll have to look at our technology with that one. So we have been looking at upgrading some of our, because we normally have our AGM in the underlap room to be able to fit the numbers, and it's a bit more of a easier room to facilitate the members of the public. We have been working on some technology to allow that to happen, so I'll have to confirm that later if that's okay. That's the plan, to be able to do that in a larger capacity, to have those cameras and live stream working.
Okay, great. And can I just clarify something that Mr Sims said about the dogs? I was a holiday home owner, and the holiday home owner is responsible if the guest dog barks. I actually had that problem once when I silly, allowed a guest to bring a dog, and the dog barked, and the council then contacted me. So they don't. It's not the guest's responsibility; it's the owner's responsibility. So just on that, can I ask Mr Nuttall, if you have a long-term rental, whose responsibility is it? The owners or the tenants?
Yeah, it'd be the tenants, so they're responsible for the dog themselves if it's a long-term rental.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Merry Christmas, everybody.
Are there any further questions? Yes, if you'd like to come up, state your name and address.
Andrew Dickey from Isaac Street, Busselton. Two very short questions, both on the same subject. Firstly, when will the tender for Stage 3 sediment removal in the Lower Vass River be issued? And the second question is, what's the total amount of money available for it, including both grants and ratepayers' money?
Yeah, through the Mayor, I don't have that information available at this point, but I'm certainly happy to get back to you with those answers ASAP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the gallery? Okay. We have no petitions, no bookings for parties with an interest. No questions. Okay. I'll move forward to the adoption by exception resolution. The committee recommendations for items 10.4, 10.6, 10.7, 10.9 and 10.10, and the officer's recommendations for items 12.1, 14.2 and 15.1 be adopted en bloc. Do I have a mover for the en bloc resolution? Moved, Councillor Ryan, seconded, Councillor McNeish. Any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. Thank you. Item 10.2. This requires an absolute majority. Policy and Legislation Committee, 8th of November 2023, the Dogs Law. Do I have a mover for the item 10.2? Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Seconded, Councillor Richards. Is there any opposition? If not, I move the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0, an absolute majority. Item 10.3, there is a disclosure of interest from myself with this item. I declare an impartiality interest in item 10.3, the Council Policy Review of the Bushfire Brigade's management policy, as I'm a member of the Metrocup Bushfire Brigade. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. I declare that I will consider this item solely on its merit and vote and act accordingly. Item 10.3, Policy and Legislation Committee, 8th of November 2023, Council Policy Review of the Bushfire Brigade Management Policy. Do I have a mover? Moved, Councillor Ryan, seconded, Councillor Cox. Do I have any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. Item 10.5, Policy and Legislation Committee, 8th of November 2023, the Council Policy Review, Elected Member Training and Professional Development. Again, I need an absolute majority on this. Do I have a mover? Moved, Councillor Ryan, seconded, Councillor Richards. Is there any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? The motion's carried 6-0, absolute majority achieved. Item 10.8, the Audit and Risk Committee of the 29th of November 2023, 2022-23 Annual Financial Statements, Audit Report and Management Letter. Again, we require an absolute majority for this one. Do I have a mover for the motion? Moved, Councillor McNeish, seconded, Councillor Cox. Is there any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Motion's carried 6-0, absolute majority achieved. Item 13.1, again, and this is going to be in two parts. We need an absolute majority for the part 2. Okay. Item 13.1, which is the Busselton Jetty Inc. short-term lease of the Ballarat Room as an interim Marine Discovery Centre, known as the MDC. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Ryan, a seconder. Sorry, I do apologise. For part 1 of this motion, I have a mover for Councillor Ryan, seconded Councillor Craig. Do I have any opposition? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. Part 2, I need an absolute majority. Do I have a mover for part 2? Moved Councillor Richards, seconded Councillor McNeish. Any opposition? Try and do this quickly. If not, I put the motion forward. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. Absolute majority achieved. Item 14.1. Again, absolute majority required. This is the annual report 22-23. Note that Councillor Ryan has made a number of requests for some changes, which we've all seen. Hopefully we're all happy with those. If that is the case, do I have a mover for this motion to accept this report? Councillor Ryan, seconded Councillor Richards. Is there any opposition? If I have no opposition, I put the motion forward. All those in favour? I carried 6-0, absolute majority achieved. Move on to item 10.1, the committee recommendation. And should this be lost, we would then be putting forward, or not carried, we'll be putting forward Councillor Ryan's alternative. So do I have a mover for this motion? For for this committee recommendation. I apologise. Is there a seconder for, no, there's no mover. Therefore, this lapses, and I move on to Councillor Ryan's alternative, as put in front of you shortly, 10.1. I won't read that all out. Do I have a mover for this motion? Moved, Councillor.
As put.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cox. Is there any objection? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. Thank you. Well done. That's all right. Okay, moving on to Councillor Ryan's motion 16.1. As put in front. Okay. Councillor Ryan, would you like to move your notice of motion?
Yes, I'd like to move my notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cox.
No, don't know.
Do I have any opposition? If there's no opposition.
Damn!
Thank you, Councillor. No, too late. I've called it. If I have no opposition, I put the motion. All those in favour?
I did put my hand up to...
Oppose. Come on, let's have a bit of a debate.
Well, yeah, it's been a short
Quickly?
night, so
Yeah.
I will oppose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manish, I have an opposition. Councillor Ryan, would you like to speak to your
I
motion?
would love to speak to my motion, especially since it's
I've
Christmas.
set you to a 1 minute limit. I've just changed the standing orders.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, great. Now you leave. Please note, Councillor Manish has just left the room at 6:16.
Where's my document gone?
Just trying to challenge me with everything.
Hang on, 2 seconds. Sorry, if you'll give me...
20 seconds.
No. I think I just closed it. Oh. Open.
1 minute left.
No.
Thank you. Time's up.
No, you'll have to bear with me, I'm sorry.
Mr. Manish would like, Councillor Manish, do you want to second this? No, he's reserved his right. Put the motion.
believe it.
Any objection? No. Oh, it was, yeah, sorry, he was opposition, wasn't he?
Just bear with me, because I know it's here.
16.1.
Ah, beauty, okay.
30 seconds.
It's Christmas, be thrifty.
Because you dress like Christmas, I'll let you talk.
Councillors, the LPS, and in particular, Special Provision 72, plainly states that the AHD must meet the standard of 3.8. However, I refer you to the minutes of the meeting of 27th of August 2019, item 13.2, which was carried 8-0, on the proposed amendment number 37 and associated structure plan and the associated conditions, 6 conditions in fact. None of those conditions had any comment or reference to 3.8 AHD, nor indeed any other height conditions. Nothing in the officer's report refers to the AHD. But I draw your attention to the clause 6 of the condition, which states, pursuant to the regulations 56 of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015, should directions be given that modifications to amendment number 37 and or the associated structure plan are required, direct these modifications to be undertaken accordingly on behalf of the council unless there are considered by officers likely to significantly affect the purpose and intent of the amendment, in which case the matter shall be formally referred back to the council for assessment and determination. With the city's reporting on final adoption of Amendments 37 to rezone the land and adopt the structure plan, there was absolutely no express mention of AHD 3.8 or indeed any other levels. I don't know about you, but I think that's a significant matter. I'm also dead sure that Mr Sims was not notified of this particular requirement and he would have objected at the time also. Interestingly, Council did not approve the char maps until the 27th of July 22, yet the char map was not submitted to WAPC until after this date, and the current char maps is dated October 2023, some 35 months later than the gazettal of the SP72, which was 23rd of October 2020. On the city's intramaps, and indeed in tonight's officers' report, Lot 71 shows a figure 8 water body. At first glance, it looks like a significant water body and one which might be led to believe it's low-lying land. However, this was excavated by the previous owner, used as a dam, and Mr Sims filled it in approximately 10 years ago due to him contracting Ross River virus. The officer's report of the 27th of August 19 confirms this, and I quote, "The man-made lake that exists on the property was created by a previous landowner to essentially provide water for stock. After experiencing issues with mosquito breeding within the man-made lake area, and following advice from the authorities, the landowner has commenced filling this area." And the report goes on. With the excavation for the lake and the subsequent filling in of the lake, the topography and hydrology of the land may have been altered. This could have potentially changed the hydraulic regime and overland flow paths, and it is important that these have not been significantly altered such that they have had an adverse impact on the proposed new allotments. The proponent has advised that although low-lying land, the remainder of the property is generally not subject to inundation, with relatively well-draining soils as well as natural drainage channels installed by the previous owners. DWER has been consulted on the proposal and advised that they have no objections to the amendment and structure plan applications proceeding. Continuing with, the scheme discourages development within the wetland and floodway areas and establishes criteria for consideration of any potential development. All of the land designated as being within the wetland area and the vast majority of the land designated as within the floodway area is proposed to be ceded as reserve and recommended to be amalgamated to the adjoining Crown Reserve managed by the WA Conservation and Park Commission. Close quotes. Also, the key policies relevant to the proposal in the same report were noted. Nothing about the char maps, nothing about 3.8 AHD. I now refer you to the char maps page 70, which acknowledges that traditionally it has been 3.0 AHD in the area, and 3.8 is really only for a longer term storm surge strategy, which goes beyond just sea level rise to 50 years. It seems to settle on 3.4 AHD generally, and even a further reduction back to 3.0 AHD under conditions. Staff suggest in the report to consider a reduction of the FFL. The applicant is required to submit supporting evidence from a coastal engineer, considering coastal process and inland inundation over a 100-year planning timeframe, as required by State Planning Policy 2.6. I'm nearly there.
Being lenient.
Upon receipt of the information, the report should be referred to DPLH, Coastal Management, for peer review and advice. Councillors, the Novus Homes website outlines a typical lifespan of a new built house in Australia. Generally speaking, you can expect a new build of home to last for at least 50 to 60 years. yet our char maps is saying that they need to consider 100 years. Councillors, climate change in the future won't recognise lines on a map or the quirky planning history of individual zones in the same neighbourhood. All the technical advice received by Mr Sims was 3.0 AHD. I'll try and wind up quickly. You Christmas Grinch. Mr Sims is also aware that the city has accepted variations with other properties of 3.0 AHD. We also heard in the November meeting the char maps is a strategic document that currently has no weight in the development approval decision until gazetted in the LPS 21 and therefore should be a guiding document only. Councillors, I urge you to support this notice of motion and set the conditions of 3.8 AHD to put this matter to bed and not subject ratepayers to further SAT costs in the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Very well put. Councillor Cox, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, why not? Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just speak
This is on
very
you, Andrew.
briefly because I think Councillor Ryan covered everything fairly comprehensively. I'll just make a couple of comments. During briefings today, we were advised that we must consider the issue of inundation independently. And I have given the issue of inundation quite a lot of consideration over the last few weeks since Councillor Ryan brought up this notice of motion. What is the risk? That is essentially the question we're asking here. What is the risk of inundation, and what is a reasonable AHD finished floor level to request in this area? So I did a bit of research, reading the engineering report done by Seascape Engineering for this lot, Seashore Engineering, in 2020. They noted that the proposed 3.8 AHD building pads for Lot 7 Forest Beach Road allow for a conservative estimate of the 500-year ARI tropical cyclone. That is 2.9 metres AHD water level. Nominally, this type of event has a 0.2% chance of occurrence each year. The engineer further acknowledged that a finished floor level of 3.0 AHD could be acceptable on this lot over a 50-year planning period, provided that if it is acknowledged that future coastal adaptation is required beyond 50 years. And I think what we are considering here, as Councillor Ryan just noted, that we are looking ahead to 100 years, 500 years. I think that situations in the city of Busselton in that period of time will have changed considerably, when we may have coastal protection in 100 years the whole way down the coast, or we may have no city of Busselton. We may be completely underwater. So I think that it is unreasonable to ask for such a high level of AHD, and I did actually bring my tape measure tonight.
Now I remember.
Sadly,
Now I
probably don't really have time to bring out now, just because actually this morning I was curious to know exactly how high 3.8 AHD actually was, and Councillor McNish noted it was higher than this ceiling. So it's pretty considerable when you actually look at it from the point of view of actually how much fill is required. And by the time a house built to that level goes underwater, well, it's a sad state of affairs for the entire rest of the city of Busselton, because we're all well underwater, and that house will be sitting there all by itself on Forest Beach Road, so we might all be moving to that property. So therefore, I would commend that. I think it was also made clear to us in the briefings today that some discretion, that further modelling is required of this 3.8 finished floor level, because it is excessive and it may not be set in stone. So to my mind, that also allows some kind of discretion. Therefore, councillors, I would urge you to probably use that bit of discretion in this motion that Councillor Ryan is putting forward tonight, and support the alternative and support the notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor McNish, would you like to speak against this motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I do like to see democracy in action, and I did indicate that I was going to speak against. But the outstanding contributions of my fellow councillors has swayed me. And I dare say I'd be wasting people's time to reinforce the... I will make one note of the discretion that is wise when new rules come in and we are allowed discretion to help those get over the imposition of, a new rule. I know we have the planning situation with this court case, and I talked earlier about people being caught out. I'd like to think that we are able to use what discretion we have with minimal risk, as Councillor Cox correctly notes. 1 in 500-year events are exceedingly rare and well outdo the building, the longevity of the projected building. Particularly, and it's not going to be washed away if he wants to build on stilts to get up to the level. It might be, but if it's concrete slab and it comes up to the first brickwork and it's got tile floors, well, there's no great loss. It just sweeps out the mud. So I commend the notice of motion to, and I've been swayed. I'll support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McNeish. Do I have a speaker for? No. Do I have a speaker against? If not, I'll put the motion forward. Right of reply. Yes, sorry.
Noting Councillor McNish's objections.
Councillor Ryan, would you like to?
I'm doing it. I'd just like to note in discussions earlier today, clause 4.51 of the scheme states, except for development in respect of which the R codes apply, if a development is the subject of an application for development approval and does not comply with the standard or requirement prescribed under the scheme, including a policy or a plan adopted pursuant to the scheme, the local government may, despite the non-compliance, approve the application unconditionally or subject to such conditions as the local government thinks fit. So there's your out to wholly support this notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have a mover? Sorry. So therefore I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors.
Item 17, we have no urgent business. At this point, we move into item 18, which is a confidential item, which unfortunately means I'm going to have to say goodbye to our audience. Merry Christmas. You can wait outside if you wish, but... Yes, it's all right. I will be closing this meeting, but before I do that, do I have a motion to close, move to close the meeting to the public? Moved Councillor Richards, seconded Councillor Ryan. That's it, motion carried. So any opposition to this? If not, I move the motion. Put the motion, all those in favour? I'll take that as 6-0, thank you.